The fog draped itself over Interstate 40 like a heavy quilt, muffling the world beyond the headlights of Sam Turner's pickup truck. It was late October, and the Oklahoma plains stretched out in all directions, swallowed by a damp, gray haze. That seemed to breathe with a life of its own. The dashboard clock glowed 11:42 p.m., its green digits cutting through the dim cab. Sam squinted through the windshield, his wipers thumping a steady rhythm against the drizzle that clung to the glass. He'd been driving for hours, delivering crates of canned goods and fresh produce to small-town grocers across the state. Another night, another haul, another stretch of lonesome road. At 50, Sam was no stranger to solitude. The hum of the engine, the crackle of country music on the radio, the bitter aftertaste of gas station coffee. They were his companions as much as any person could be. His hands, calloused from years of gripping steering wheels and hauling boxes, rested loosely on the wheel of his weathered Ford F-150. The truck was old, its red paint chipped along the hood, but it was reliable, like Sam himself. He liked reliable. It was something you could count on in a world that often felt like it was spinning out of control. He was halfway between Clinton and Elk City, on a stretch of highway so empty it felt like the edge of the earth, when something caught his eye, a flicker of movement by the roadside, just beyond the reach of his headlights. He eased off the gas, the truck slowing with a low grumble. His first thought was an animal, a deer maybe, or a stray dog. But as he leaned forward, peering through the fog, he saw it wasn't an animal at all. It was a person, a girl, young, maybe late teens, stood under the faint glow of a flickering streetlight. She was small, hunched against the cold, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. A tattered cardboard sign hung from her hands, the ink, smudged but still legible. Anywhere but here. Her clothes, an oversized hoodie and jeans, were soaked through, clinging to her thin frame. Her sneakers were gone, her bare feet caked with mud. She didn't wave, didn't move, just stood there, a shadow in the mist. Sam's heart tightened, a familiar mix of caution and concern. He'd heard the stories, hitchhikers who weren't what they seemed, setups for robberies or worse. The road taught you to keep your guard up. But there was something about the girl's posture, the way her shoulders slumped, her head bowed low, that tugged at a memory he couldn't quite place. He'd seen that kind of defeat before in the mirror years ago after his wife Clara passed, the kind of weight that made you feel like the world had turned its back on you. He flicked on his hazard lights and pulled onto the shoulder, the truck's tires crunching against wet gravel. The engine idled as he sat for a moment, hands still, on the wheel, debating. You don't owe her anything, he told himself. Keep driving, you've got a schedule. But his hands moved before his mind could catch up, cutting the engine. He grabbed his old Carhartt jacket from the passenger seat, stepped out into the damp air and approached slowly, his boots sinking slightly into the muddy grass. Hey, he called, keeping his voice low, gentle, like he was talking to a skittish animal. You okay, miss? The girl flinched at the sound, her head jerking up. Her face was half hidden by the hood of her sweatshirt, but Sam caught a glimpse of wide, wary eyes and a dirt-smudged cheek. She didn't answer, just clutched her sign tighter, her knuckles pale against the soggy cardboard. Sam stopped a few feet away, palms open to show he meant no harm. It's cold out here, he said. You need help? Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She nodded, a small, hesitant movement, like she wasn't sure she was allowed to ask for anything. Up close, Sam could see the hollows in her cheeks, the faint tremble in her hands. She looked like she hadn't eaten properly in days, maybe longer. Her bare feet were raw, small cuts crisscrossing her ankles where she'd likely stumbled through, brush or gravel. Without thinking, Sam shrugged off his jacket and held it out. Here, he said. You're freezing. She hesitated, her eyes flicking from the jacket to his face, searching for a catch. When she finally reached for it, her fingers brushed his, cold as ice. She pulled the jacket around her shoulders, clutching it like a lifeline, and mumbled something too soft to catch. What's that? Sam asked, leaning in slightly. Thank you, she whispered, her voice brittle, like it hadn't been used in a while. Sam nodded, scratching the back of his neck, Name's Sam. I'm headed to a diner a few miles up the road. You want a ride? Get you somewhere warm? Her eyes widened, a flicker of fear crossing her face, but it softened when she looked at him again. Maybe it was the gray in his stubble, the lines etched around his eyes, or the way he stood with his shoulders slouched, unthreatening. Whatever it was, she nodded again, this time with a little more certainty. Okay, she said, barely audible. Sam gestured toward the truck. Come on then, let's get you out of this mess. The cab of Sam's truck smelled faintly of motor oil and pine air freshener, a stark contrast to the damp chill outside. He helped the girl climb in, noticing how she wobbled, her strength, sapped by cold and hunger. She curled into the passenger seat, pulling her knees to her chest, the oversized jacket swallowing her small frame. Sam reached behind the seat, grabbed a wool blanket he kept for long hauls, and draped it over her. Buckle up, he said, starting the engine. The heater roared to life, blasting warm air into the cab. He handed her a half-empty bottle of water and a pack of peanut butter crackers from the glove compartment. It's not much, but it'll help. She took them with trembling hands, tearing into the crackers like someone who'd forgotten what food tasted like. She ate in silence, crumbs dusting the blanket, while Sam focused on the road. The fog was thinning now, the diner's neon sign glowing faintly in the distance. Maggie's place, open 24/7. It was a familiar stop, a haven for truckers and late-night wanderers with greasy burgers and coffee that could wake the dead. Sam didn't push her to talk. He'd learned over years of hauling freight and meeting all sorts of folks that silence often said more than words. She'd speak when she was ready, or she wouldn't. Either way, he wasn't here to pry. He just wanted to get her somewhere, safe, somewhere she could breathe for a minute. They pulled into the diner's gravel lot, the truck's headlights sweeping over a scattering of cars and a couple of semis parked at the far end. The girl, Sam still didn't know her name, stared. Out the window, her expression unreadable. He killed the engine and turned to her. Hungry? He asked. She nodded, clutching the blanket tighter. I don't have any money, she said, her voice small, like she expected him to change his mind. Don't worry about it, Sam said, waving a hand. My treat. Come on. Inside, the diner was a warm bubble of light and noise. The smell of frying bacon and fresh coffee hit them like a wave, and the jukebox in the corner played a soft Merle Haggard tune. Maggie, the owner and head waitress, looked up from behind the counter, her gray hair pulled into a loose bun. She was in her 60s with a face that could be stern or kind depending on the situation, and she'd known Sam for years. Well, look who's back, Maggie called, her Oklahoma drawl thick as molasses. Her eyes landed on the girl, and her expression softened. And who's this? Sam shrugged, guiding the girl to a booth by the window. Found her out on 40. Needs a hot meal. Maggie raised an eyebrow but didn't ask questions. She grabbed 2 menus and followed them over, setting them down with a practiced flick. Coffee? She asked Sam. Always, he said, sliding into the booth. The girl sat across from him, still wrapped in the blanket, her bare feet tucked under her. Maggie looked her over, her gaze lingering on the mud-caked jeans and the too big jacket. You want coffee too, hun? Or something else? Hot chocolate? The girl asked, almost like a question, as if she wasn't sure she was allowed. Comin' right up, Maggie said, then leaned in closer. I got some spare sneakers in. The back. They ain't fancy, but they'll keep your feet warm. I'll grab 'em after I put your order in. The girl blinked, startled. Thank you, she said, her voice stronger now, though still shaky. Sam ordered a burger and fries, his usual, and told the girl to get whatever she wanted. She hesitated, scanning the menu like it was a foreign language, then settled on tomato, soup, and a grilled cheese sandwich. Maggie scribbled it down and disappeared into the kitchen, leaving them in the soft hum of the diner. For a while, they sat in silence, the girl staring at the table, tracing the cracks in the linoleum with her fingertip. Sam sipped his coffee, black and bitter, and watched the fog outside swirl against the window. He wasn't sure what to say, or if he should say anything at all. She looked like she'd been through hell, and he didn't want to push her into reliving it. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. My name's Lily. Sam glanced at her, surprised. Nice to meet you, Lily. I'm Sam. She tried to smile, but it faltered, like a light bulb flickering before it went out. Thanks for this, she said, gesturing vaguely at the diner. The blanket, the jacket. You didn't have to. Sam shrugged. Didn't have to, but I wanted to. World's tough enough without folks making it harder. Lily's eyes dropped back to the table, and for a moment Sam thought that was all she'd say. But then she took a deep breath, like she was steeling herself. I'm running, she said, the words spilling out in a rush. From a foster home. It wasn't good. Sam's grip tightened on his coffee mug, but he kept his face neutral. You don't have to tell me if you don't want to, he said, but I'm listening if you do. She nodded, her fingers twisting the edge of the blanket. They didn't hit me or anything. Not like that. But they made me feel like I was nothing. Like I was just there to clean the house. Take care of their kids like I didn't matter. I turned 18 last month and they told me I had to leave. Didn't even give me a day to figure it out, so I just left. Sam exhaled slowly, his chest tight. He'd seen enough of the world to know how it could chew up someone like Lily and spit them out. Where you headed? He asked. She shrugged, her eyes distant. Anywhere. I don't know. I just couldn't stay there. Before Sam could respond, Maggie returned with a tray. She set down a steaming bowl of tomato soup and a grilled cheese sandwich, golden and crispy, in front of Lily, along with a mug of hot chocolate topped with a swirl of whipped cream. For Sam, a burger piled high with lettuce and tomato, and a side of fries. She also slid a pair of worn but clean sneakers under the table. Size 7, Maggie said to Lily. Hope they fit. Lily stared at the shoes, then up at Maggie, her eyes glistening. Thank you, she said, her voice cracking. Maggie patted her shoulder. Eat up, hun. You look like you need it. Lily ate like she was afraid the food would disappear. She dunked the grilled cheese into the soup, taking small, quick bites, her eyes darting around the diner as if expecting someone to tell her to stop. Sam ate more slowly, giving her space, letting her settle. The jukebox switched to a Johnny Cash song, its low, steady rhythm filling the quiet between them. When she finished, she leaned back, clutching the hot chocolate mug with both hands, letting the warmth seep into her palms. The sneakers were on her feet now, a little big, but better than nothing. She looked less like a ghost, more like a person, though the shadows under her eyes told a story that food and shoes couldn't erase. You got somewhere to go tonight? Sam asked, keeping his tone casual. Lily shook her head, her gaze dropping. No, I've been moving around, sleeping where I can. Sam nodded, unsurprised but troubled. He'd seen kids like her before, drifting through truck stops and gas stations, living on scraps and luck. He didn't know much about Lily, but he knew she deserved better than that. I got a friend in Elk City, he said. Runs a shelter. It's not fancy, but it's safe. Clean beds, hot showers. I can take you there if you want. Lily's eyes flicked up, wary again. Why are you helping me? She asked, not accusing, just genuinely confused. You don't even know me. Sam leaned back, scratching his stubble. Don't need to know someone to see they need help, he said. Besides, I've been where you are. Not exactly, but close enough. Someone helped me once. Figure I owe it to the universe to pass it on. She studied him, like she was trying to decide if he was for real. Finally, she nodded. Okay. The shelter sounds okay. Sam paid the bill, leaving a generous tip for Maggie, who gave him a knowing nod. You're a softie, Sam Turner, she said, half teasing. Don't spread it around, he shot back, but he couldn't hide the smile tugging at his lips. Back in the truck, Lily curled up in the passenger seat again, the blanket pulled tight around her. The drive to Elk City was short, just under 20 minutes, but the fog had lifted enough to reveal the flat, endless horizon. Sam called his friend Tom, who ran the shelter, letting him know they were coming. Tom was a former trucker himself, a big man with a bigger heart, and he didn't ask questions when Sam vouched for someone. When they pulled up to the shelter, a modest brick building tucked behind a church, Tom was waiting outside, his hands stuffed in the pockets of his denim jacket. He took one look at Lily and waved them inside. "Got a bed ready?" Tom said, his voice gruff but kind. "And a hot shower if you want it." Lily hesitated, glancing at Sam. He nodded encouragingly. "You'll be okay here," he said. "Tom's good people." She swallowed, then reached into the pocket of Sam's jacket, pulling out a small, crumpled piece of paper. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, her voice barely audible. "But I will. Someday." Sam shook his head. "Just take care of yourself, Lily, that's enough." He handed her a prepaid phone card he'd grabbed from the diner's counter, along with a scrap of paper with his number scrawled on it. "If you need anything, you call. All right?" She nodded, clutching the card like it was gold. Then, with a final glance, she followed Tom inside, her steps slow but steady. Sam climbed back into his truck, the cab suddenly feeling emptier. He leaned his forehead against the steering wheel, letting out a long breath. He didn't know why he'd stopped for her. Not really. Maybe it was the way she'd stood there, alone in the fog, like a shadow of the man he'd been after Clara died. Maybe it was just instinct. Whatever it was, he hoped it was enough. As he pulled back onto the highway, the neon glow of the shelter fading in his rearview mirror, he whispered a small prayer, one he hadn't said in years. Let her be okay, please. The Elk City Community Shelter smelled of bleach and old wood, a comforting mix that spoke of care and wear in equal measure. Lily stood in the small, tiled bathroom, staring at her reflection in the cracked mirror above the sink. The fluorescent light buzzed faintly, casting a harsh glow on her face. Her cheeks were still hollow, her brown eyes shadowed with exhaustion, but the dirt was gone, washed away in a long, hot shower. Her hair, damp and tangled, hung past her shoulders, and she wore a clean set of clothes from the shelter's donation bin. A faded blue t-shirt, slightly too big, and a pair of gray sweatpants that fit better than her old jeans. The sneakers Maggie had given her sat neatly by the door, a small anchor in a world that still felt unsteady. Tom, the shelter's director, had shown her to a cot in the women's dorm, a narrow room with 6 beds, each separated by a thin curtain. The other women were asleep or reading, their soft breathing and the rustle of pages the only sounds. Lily sat on her cot, clutching Sam's jacket, which she hadn't returned. It smelled faintly of coffee and motor oil, a reminder of the man who'd stopped for her when no one else had. She pulled the prepaid phone card from her pocket, turning it over in her hands. The number scrawled on the scrap of paper was smudged, but legible. She didn't know if she'd ever use it, but holding it felt like holding a promise. Sleep didn't come easy that night. The cot was firm, the blanket scratchy, but it was better than the park benches and bus station floors she'd curled up on over the past weeks. Her mind raced, replaying the foster home she'd fled. The sharp words, the constant demands, the way her foster mother's eyes had narrowed when she dared to ask for anything. "You're lucky we keep you at all," the woman had said, her voice cold as the November wind. Lily had believed her for a while, but running had been her rebellion, her proof that she wasn't nothing. And yet, standing on that highway, holding that sign, she'd felt like she was disappearing. Sam's face flickered in her mind, his weathered hands, his quiet voice, the way he'd looked at her like she was a person, not a problem. She didn't understand why he'd helped her, but she clung to his words. "Just take care of yourself, Lily. That's enough." For the first time in a long time, she wanted to believe it. The next morning, Tom knocked on the dorm doorframe, his voice gentle but firm. "Breakfast's on, Lily. You coming?" She nodded, pulling on the sneakers and following him to the shelter's common room. It was a modest space, with mismatched tables and chairs, and a bulletin board plastered with flyers about job fairs and GED classes. A dozen or so people sat eating oatmeal and toast, their conversations a low hum. Tom handed her a plate and pointed her toward a table where a woman in her 30s, with short blonde hair and a kind smile, was pouring coffee. "This is Ellen," Tom said. "She's our volunteer coordinator. She'll help you get settled." Ellen looked up, her eyes warm. "Hey, Lily. Tom says you're new here." You need anything, you let me know, okay? Lily nodded, unsure what to say. She sat at the table, picking at her oatmeal, listening as Ellen chatted about the shelter's programs, job training, counseling, help with IDs and paperwork. It sounded overwhelming, like a language Lily didn't speak yet, but Ellen's enthusiasm was contagious. You ever think about finishing high school? Ellen asked, sipping her coffee. We've got a connection with the community college in Weatherford. They run a GED program, free for folks like you. Lily's spoon paused mid-air. I dropped out my junior year, she admitted. Didn't have much choice. No judgment here, Ellen said. But if you're interested, I can set up a meeting with a counselor. No pressure. Lily chewed her lip, the idea both terrifying and tempting. School had been a distant memory, something she'd pushed aside to survive. But the thought of having something to work toward, something that was hers, sparked a flicker of hope. Maybe, she said finally. I'll think about it. Ellen smiled. That's all I ask. Sam's route took him through Elk City. Every couple of weeks, a loop that connected small-town grocery stores from Tulsa to Amarillo. He didn't expect to hear from Lily right away. Kids like her often moved on, or got spooked, or just didn't trust enough to reach out. But he found himself glancing at his phone more often, checking for a call or a text from that prepaid card number. When a week passed with nothing, he told himself it was fine. She was safe, at least. That was what mattered. Still, when he pulled into Maggie's place on his next run-through, he couldn't help but ask. Maggie was wiping down the counter, her apron stained with coffee and ketchup, when he slid onto a stool. Any word on that girl I brought in? He asked, keeping his tone casual. Maggie raised an eyebrow, a smirk tugging at her lips. Miss her already, huh? Sam rolled his eyes. Just checking, Maggie. Don't make it a thing. She chuckled, pouring him a coffee. She's at the shelter in Elk City. Tom says she's doing okay. Quiet, but showing up for meals, talking a bit. Ellen's got her eye on her, says she's smart. Might even get her into that GED program. Sam nodded, relief loosening the knot in his chest. Good, that's good. Maggie leaned on the counter, her voice softening. You did a good thing, Sam. Not many would have stopped. He shrugged, staring into his coffee. Didn't do much. Just gave her a ride. Bull, Maggie said, swatting his arm with a dish rag. You gave her a chance. That's more than most get. Sam didn't argue. He finished his coffee, left a tip, and headed back to his truck, the weight of Maggie's words lingering. He wasn't one for grand gestures. Clara used to tease him about being allergic to heroics, but he couldn't shake the feeling that stopping for Lily had mattered, even if he didn't know how yet. 2 weeks later, he was back in Elk City, delivering a load of canned peaches and frozen chicken to a mom-and-pop store. On a whim, he swung by the shelter, telling himself he was just checking in. Tom was outside, raking leaves from the small front yard, his breath visible in the crisp morning air. Sam Turner, Tom said, grinning. Didn't expect you back. So soon. Just passing through, Sam said, leaning against his truck. How's Lily doing? Tom set the rake against the wall. She's hanging in there. Got her enrolled in that GED program Ellen was pushing. She's shy, but she's got grit. Come see for yourself. Sam hesitated, then followed Tom inside. The common room was quieter than last time, with only a few people milling about. Lily sat at a table in the corner, a textbook open in front of her, her brow furrowed in concentration. She looked different. Cleaner, steadier, though still too thin. Sam's jacket was folded neatly beside her, a small sign of care. Hey, Lily, Tom called. Got a visitor. She looked up, startled, and when she saw Sam, her face broke into a shy smile. Sam, she said, standing. You came back. Told you I'd check in, he said, scratching his neck, suddenly self-conscious. How's it going? She glanced at the textbook, a math workbook filled with scribbled notes. It's hard, she admitted. But good. Ellen says I'm catching up fast. She's a math whiz, Tom said, clapping Lily on the shoulder. Aced her first practice test. Lily blushed, ducking her head. It's just algebra. Sam grinned. Just algebra, she says. I flunked that stuff in high school. You're already doing better than me. She laughed, a small, tentative sound. But it was the first time Sam had heard it. It felt like a victory, small but real. They talked for a while, Sam asking about her classes, Lily answering in short bursts, her confidence growing with each question. She told him about the shelter's routine. Breakfast at 7, group meetings, in the evenings, the way Ellen pushed her to think about the future. Sam listened, nodding, letting her fill the space with her words. Before he left, he slipped her a few bucks for bus fare. For getting to class, he said. No arguments. She took the money, her fingers brushing his. I'll pay you back, she said, her voice firm. You already are, Sam said, gesturing at the textbook. Keep at it, kid. Over the next few months, Lily's world began to shift. The shelter became less of a temporary stop and more of a home, though she was careful not to call it that. Home was a word that carried too much weight, too many broken promises. But the routine grounded her. Classes in the morning, shifts at Maggie's place in the afternoons, and evenings spent studying or helping with chores at the shelter. Maggie had offered her a job washing dishes, a small role that came with a paycheck and free meals. Lily took to it with a quiet determination, scrubbing plates until her hands were raw, grateful for the work. Maggie became a mentor of sorts, her sharp humor tempered by a motherly warmth. You're tougher than you look, she'd say, tossing Lily a clean apron. Keep that chin up. Lily did. She showed up early, stayed late, and learned the rhythm of the diner, the clatter of plates, the hiss of the grill, the chatter of truckers and locals who filled the booths. She listened to their stories, their complaints, their jokes, and slowly, she started to feel like she belonged. Not completely, not yet, but enough to keep going. Sam's visits were a highlight, though she'd never admit it out loud. He'd roll in every couple of weeks, his truck rumbling into the lot, and slide into a booth with a tired smile. He always ordered the same thing, burger, fries, black coffee, and always left a tip bigger than he could probably afford. They didn't talk much, but their conversations were easy, unforced. He'd ask about her classes, her job, her plans, and she'd answer, each time a little less guarded. One evening, as the diner's neon sign buzzed against the dusk, Lily sat across from him, a plate of fries between them. She'd just passed her second GED practice test, and Ellen had started talking about college applications. The idea seemed impossible, like reaching for a star, but Ellen's insistence was hard to ignore. You ever think about what you want to do? Sam asked, dipping a fry in ketchup. After the GED, I mean. Lily shrugged, picking at her fries. I don't know. Something where I can help people, maybe, like Ellen does. Or you. Sam snorted. Me? I just drive a truck. Kid. You helped me, she said quietly, her eyes meeting his. That's not nothing. He looked away, his throat tight. You're doing the hard work, Lily. I just gave you a push. She smiled, a real one this time, and for a moment, the diner felt like the warmest place in the world. By spring, Lily was a different person, though she didn't always see it. Her cheeks were fuller, her eyes brighter, and she carried herself with a quiet confidence that hadn't been there before. The GED program was grueling, but she was good at it, better than she'd expected. Math came easily, and English, though harder, was starting to make sense. Ellen pushed her to think bigger, arranging a meeting with a counselor at Western Oklahoma State College in Altus. The counselor, a woman named Dr. Patel, was kind but direct. You've got potential, Lily, she said, flipping through Lily's practice test scores. With these grades, you could qualify for a scholarship. Have you thought about a career path? Lily hesitated. Maybe nursing, she said. I want to help people who are hurting, like I was. Dr. Patel nodded, jotting down notes. Nursing's a great choice. It's hard work, but it's rewarding. We can start with a certificate program, get you some prerequisites, and go from there. Lily left the meeting dizzy with possibility. Nursing. It was a word that felt too big, too real, but it stuck with her, a seed planted in fertile ground. Back at the diner, she told Maggie about it, her voice cautious but excited. Maggie whooped, nearly dropping a tray of coffee mugs. "That's my girl," she said, pulling Lily into a hug. "You're gonna be out there saving lives one day." Lily laughed, embarrassed but pleased. "It's just an idea." "It's a damn good one," Maggie said, winking. When Sam came through the next week, Lily couldn't wait to tell him. She slid into his booth, her apron still tied on, and blurted it out. "I'm thinking about nursing school." Sam's eyebrows shot, up his burger halfway to his mouth. "Nursing? Hell, Lily, that's big. You'd be great at it." "You think so?" she asked, her voice small. "I know so," he said, his eyes steady. "You've got heart. That's what makes a good nurse." She ducked her head, her cheeks warm. "Thanks, Sam." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small notebook, the kind he used to track his routes. He tore out a page, scribbled something, and handed it to her. "That's the number for a friend of mine in Altus. She's a nurse, works at the hospital. If you need advice, she'll help." Lily took the paper, her fingers trembling slightly. "You didn't have to do that." Sam shrugged, his usual answer. "Wanted to." The Oklahoma summer settled over Elk City like a heavy blanket, the air thick with heat and the hum of cicadas. Lily had been at the shelter for nearly 6 months, and the rhythm of her days had become a kind of lifeline. Mornings were for GED, classes at the community college in Weatherford, a 30-minute bus ride that wound through fields of golden wheat and rusted oil derricks. Afternoons meant shifts at Maggie's place, where the clatter of dishes and the sizzle of the grill filled the hours. Evenings were for studying, her nose buried in textbooks under the shelter's flickering fluorescent lights. It was grueling, but it was hers, a life she was building piece by piece. The GED program was tougher than she'd expected. Algebra was her strength, the equations clicking into place like puzzle pieces, but English tripped her up. Essays felt like climbing, a mountain with no map, her thoughts tangling before they could reach the page. Ellen, the shelter's volunteer coordinator, became her unofficial tutor, sitting with her after dinner to parse sentences and brainstorm thesis statements. "You're overthinking it," Ellen said one evening, tapping a pencil against Lily's notebook. They were at a table in the shelter's common room, surrounded by the soft hum of conversation and the smell of instant coffee. "Just write what you know, what you feel." Lily chewed her lip, staring at the prompt. "Describe a moment that changed your life." "I don't know what to say," she admitted. "Everything feels too big." Ellen leaned back, her blonde hair catching the light. "Start small. One moment. Doesn't have to be perfect." Lily's mind drifted to the foggy night on Interstate 40, Sam's truck pulling over, his jacket warm around her shoulders. She started writing, her hand shaky at first, then steadier. "I was standing on the side of the road, cold and scared, when a stranger stopped. He didn't have to, but he did." The words came slowly, but they came, and by the end of the hour she had a rough draft. It wasn't polished, but it was honest, and Ellen's smile told her that was enough. "You're getting there," Ellen said, squeezing her shoulder. "Keep going." Lily nodded, a spark of pride flickering in her chest. She was getting there wherever there was. At the diner, Maggie noticed the change in her. Lily moved faster now, her steps sure as she balanced trays of coffee and plates of pancakes. She'd started memorizing regular orders: black coffee for Mr. Jenkins, the retired farmer, extra syrup for Carla, the night shift nurse. The customers noticed too, tossing her smiles or small talk. And slowly, Lily stopped feeling like an outsider. She was still quiet, still careful, but she was part of the diner's rhythm, a thread in its fabric. One sweltering July afternoon, as she scrubbed grease from a skillet in the kitchen, Maggie poked her head in. "Got a visitor, kiddo." Lily wiped her hands on her apron, her heart doing a little flip. She knew who it was before she stepped into the dining area. Sam sat. In his usual booth by the window, his red flannel shirt rolled up to his elbows, a cup of coffee steaming in front of him. His trucker's cap rested on the table, revealing a shock of graying hair. He looked up as she approached, his weathered face breaking into a grin. "Hey, Lily," he said. "Heard you're tearing it up in that GED program." She blushed, sliding into the booth across from him. "It's okay," she said, downplaying it. "Still got a ways to go. Don't sell yourself short," Sam said, pointing a fry at her. "Tom says you're top of the class in math. That's something." Lily shrugged, but her smile betrayed her. "It's just numbers. They make sense." Sam chuckled. "Wish I could say the same. Numbers and I never got along." They fell into their usual rhythm, talking about small things, his latest delivery route, the diner's new cherry pie, the way the heat made the highway shimmer like a mirage. But there was an ease to it now, a trust that hadn't been there before. Lily found herself telling him about her essay, about the nursing idea that was starting to feel less like a dream and more like a plan. "Nursing's a calling," Sam said, his voice thoughtful. "My wife, Clara, she used to volunteer at a clinic, said it was the hardest job she ever loved." Lily tilted her head, curious. Sam rarely mentioned his wife, and when he did, there was a shadow in his eyes. "What was she like?" she asked, then immediately regretted it, afraid she'd crossed a line. Sam didn't flinch, though. He leaned back, his gaze drifting to the window. "Kind, stubborn. Always saw the good in people, even when they didn't see it themselves." He paused, a small smile tugging at his lips. "You'd have liked her." Lily nodded, sensing the weight of his words. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "Yeah," Sam said, clearing his throat. "Me too." He took a sip of coffee, then shifted the conversation. "So, you talked to that nurse friend of mine yet? In Altus?" "Not yet," Lily admitted. I don't know what to say." "Just be yourself," Sam said. "She's good people. She'll like you." Lily tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, her fingers brushing the edge of his jacket, which she still wore sometimes, despite the summer heat. "I'll call her," she promised. "Soon." Sam nodded, satisfied. "Good. And hey, if you need a ride to Altus, you let me know. My route goes that way sometimes." She smiled, the offer warming her more than the diner's coffee. "Thanks, Sam." Not every day was a step forward. Some mornings Lily woke with a heaviness in her chest, the old voices from the foster home creeping back. "You're nothing. You'll never be anything." She'd lie on her cot, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she was fooling herself. The GED, the nursing dream, the diner, it all felt fragile, like a house of cards that could collapse with one wrong move. One August evening. After a particularly rough class where she'd bombed an English quiz, she sat on the shelter's back steps, the air thick with the scent of cut grass and diesel from a nearby road. Her textbook lay unopened beside her, her hands clenched into fists. Ellen found her there, her sneakers crunching on the gravel. "Rough day?" Ellen asked, sitting beside her. Lily nodded, her throat tight. "I failed the quiz. I thought I was getting it, but I'm not smart enough for this." Ellen tilted her head, her expression calm but firm. "One quiz doesn't define you, Lily. You're smart. You're just learning how to show it." Lily shook her head, tears prickling her eyes. "What if I can't do it? What if I mess it all up?" "Then you try again," Ellen said simply. "You've been through worse than a bad quiz. You're still here." Lily wiped her eyes, the words sinking in. Ellen was right. She'd survived the foster home, the streets, the cold nights with no food or shelter. A failed quiz wasn't the end of the world. But the fear lingered, a shadow she couldn't shake. The next day, she forced herself back to class, her jaw set. She studied harder, asked questions, stayed late to go over her mistakes with the teacher. When Sam came through the diner a week later, she told him about it, her voice quiet but steady. "Failed a quiz, huh?" he said, leaning back in the booth. "Bet you aced the next one." She laughed, surprised by how easy it felt with him. "Not quite, but I passed." "That's my girl," Sam said, his grin wide. "Keep swinging." Lily felt a warmth spread through her, not just from his words, but from the way he said them, like he believed in her without question. It was a new feeling, one she wasn't used to, but she held on to it, tucking it away like a treasure. By fall, Lily was close to finishing her GED. The tests loomed like a mountain, but she was climbing, one step at a time. Ellen had helped her fill out applications for a nursing assistant program at Western Oklahoma State College, and Dr. Patel, the counselor, had connected her with a scholarship fund for former foster youth. The paperwork was daunting: transcripts, essays, recommendation letters, but Ellen and Maggie pitched in, proofreading and cheering her on. Lily finally called Sam's nurse friend Karen in Altus. The conversation was awkward at first, Lily stumbling over her words, but Karen's warm voice put her at ease. "Sam says you're thinking about nursing," Karen said. "That's a big deal. You ever want to shadow me at the hospital? You just say the word." Lily promised she would, though the idea of stepping into a hospital felt like jumping off a cliff. But Karen's offer, like Sam's jacket or Maggie's sneakers, was another thread in the net being woven beneath her. At the diner, Lily had moved from washing dishes to waiting tables, a job that scared her at first but grew easier with time. She liked the bustle, the way customers smiled when she remembered their orders, the tips that added up in her pocket. She saved every penny, dreaming of a day when she could afford her own place, maybe a small apartment with a window for sunlight. Sam's visits became a rhythm she counted on. He'd roll in sometimes with a new book for her, a used copy of To Kill a Mockingbird or a dog-eared nursing textbook he'd found at a thrift store. They'd talk over coffee and fries, the conversations stretching longer each time. He told her stories about his roots, the quirky small towns he passed through, the time he'd hauled a load of pumpkins that spilled across a highway in Texas, mediocrities. She told him about her classes, her fears, her small victories, and he listened, his eyes crinkling with pride. One crisp October evening, as the diner's windows fogged with the first chill of fall, Lily sat across from Sam, her hands wrapped around a mug of hot chocolate. She'd just gotten her latest test scores, high enough to qualify for the scholarship, and she couldn't hide her excitement. "I might actually do this," she said, her voice trembling with disbelief. "The nursing thing. Dr. Patel says, I've got a shot at a full ride." Sam leaned forward, his elbows on the table. "A shot? Lily, you've got more than a shot. You've got this." She smiled, her cheeks warm. "I'm scared," she admitted. "What if I'm not good enough?" "You're good enough," Sam said, his voice firm. "You're tougher than most folks I know. You've already come this far." "That's not nothing." Lily looked down at her mug, her fingers tracing the handle. "I wouldn't be here without you," she said quietly. "That night, you didn't just give me a ride, you gave me a chance." Sam scratched his neck, uncomfortable with the praise. "You did the work, kid. I just pointed you in the right direction." She shook her head, insistent. "You saw me. When I felt invisible, you saw me." For a moment, neither of them spoke, the jukebox's soft twang filling the silence. Sam's eyes were misty, though he'd never admit it. "You're not invisible, Lily," he said finally. "Not to me. Not to Maggie or Ellen or anyone here. You're family." Lily's throat tightened, and she blinked back tears. Family. The word felt too big, too fragile, but it fit, like a key turning in a lock. She reached across the table, her hand resting on his for a moment. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady now. "For everything." Sam squeezed her hand, his grip warm and solid. "Anytime, kid." The winter of 2023 was harsh in Oklahoma, with icy winds sweeping across the plains and frost coating the windows of Maggie's place, Lise. Days were a blur of studying, working, and dreaming, each one bringing her closer to her GED exams. The tests were scheduled for early December, a looming deadline that both thrilled and terrified her. She'd passed every practice test, some with flying colors, but the weight of the real thing pressed hard on her shoulders. This wasn't just a test, it was a door to a future she'd barely dared to imagine a year ago. Ellen had become more than a mentor. She was a friend, someone who saw through Lily's doubts and pushed her to keep going. They spent evenings at the shelter, drilling vocabulary and practicing essay outlines, the common room warm with the glow of Christmas lights strung across the walls. Maggie chipped in too, slipping Lily extra shifts at the diner to help her, save for textbooks and bus fare. The community was rallying around her, a quiet net of support that felt both unfamiliar and precious. But the road wasn't smooth. Money was tight, even with the diner job. The scholarship Dr. Patel had mentioned would cover tuition, but there were still costs, application fees, study materials, clothes for interviews, that ate into her savings. One night after a double shift left her exhausted, Lily sat at the diner's counter counting her tips. $23.47, barely enough for a week's bus fare. She stared at the crumpled bills, the old voices creeping back. You're not enough. You'll fail. She pushed them down, but they lingered, sharp as thorns. Maggie noticed her quiet mood and slid a slice of cherry pie across the counter. On the house, she said, her voice soft. You okay, hun? Lily forced a smile. Just tired. And worried. The tests are soon, and I don't know if I can afford everything after. Maggie leaned on the counter, her eyes kind but piercing. You're not in this alone, Lily. You tell us what you need and we'll figure it out. Lily nodded, but the weight didn't lift. She didn't want to be a burden, not to Maggie, not to Ellen, not to Sam. They'd already done so much. She tucked the tips into her apron pocket and went back to scrubbing tables, the repetitive motion soothing her racing thoughts. Sam's next visit came on a snowy evening, his truck dusted with white as it rolled into the diner's lot. He shook off his coat, snowflakes melting into his flannel shirt, and slid into his usual booth. Lily brought him coffee without asking, the routine as familiar as breathing now. He looked tired, his eyes shadowed from a long haul through a storm, but his smile was warm as ever. Heard you're about to take those tests, he said, stirring sugar into his coffee. You ready? Mostly, Lily said, sitting across from him. It's a lot. English is still hard and I'm scared I'll choke. Sam tilted his head, his expression thoughtful. You know, Clara used to say fear's just your heart telling you something matters. You're scared because this is big. That's okay. Means you're fighting for something worth having. Lily traced a crack in the table, his words sinking in. What if I mess it up? Then you try again, Sam said simply. But you won't. You've been busting your tail for months. You've got this. She wanted to believe him, but the doubt lingered. She told him about the money worries, the words spilling out before she could stop them. I'm saving everything I can, but it's not enough. Books, fees, clothes for interviews, it adds up. Sam listened, his face unreadable. When she finished, he leaned back, scratching his stubble. You let me worry about that, he said. I've got some connections, might be able to help with the extras. Lily shook her head, her pride flaring. Sam, you've already done too much. And you're doing more, he countered. You're not just taking tests, Lily. You're building a life. Let me help with the small stuff. She wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes, steady, stubborn, stopped her. Okay, she said finally, but I'm paying you back. Someday. Sam grinned. Deal. The GED exams were held in a community college testing center in Weatherford, a sterile room with rows of desks and the faint hum of fluorescent lights. Lily arrived early, her stomach churning, her backpack heavy with pencils and a water bottle. Ellen had driven her, offering a pep talk the whole way. You've prepared for this, she said, her voice firm. You know the material. Just breathe. Lily nodded, clutching Sam's jacket, which she'd brought for luck. The tests stretched over 2 days: math, science, social studies, and the dreaded English. Math went smoothly, the equations flowing like a familiar song. Science and social studies were harder but manageable, her months of study paying off. English was the toughest, the essay prompt asking her to argue a point she barely understood. She wrote about resilience, drawing on her own story, her hand shaking as she filled the page. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers. When it was over, she walked out into the cold December air, her breath visible, her heart pounding. Ellen was waiting in the parking lot, her smile wide. "How'd it go?" "I don't know," Lily said, her voice shaky. "I think... okay." "You did great," Ellen said, pulling her into a hug. "I can feel it." The wait for results was agonizing, 2 weeks of second-guessing every answer. Lily threw herself into work at the diner, taking extra shifts to keep her mind busy. Maggie kept her fed with pie and encouragement, and Sam called once, his voice crackling over the prepaid phone. "You nailed it, kid," he said, not a hint of doubt in his tone. "I know it." On a gray morning in late December, the results came. Lily was at the shelter, helping decorate a small Christmas tree in the common room, when Ellen burst in, waving an envelope. "It's here," she said, her voice bright with excitement. Lily's hands trembled as she opened it, her eyes scanning the page. Her heart stopped, then raced. She'd passed every section, with scores high enough for the scholarship. A sound escaped her, half laugh, half sob, and Ellen pulled her into a hug, the other shelter residents cheering. "I did it," Lily whispered, the words barely audible. "I actually did it." Ellen grinned, her eyes misty. "Told you, kid. You're a star." That night, Lily called Sam, her voice shaking with joy. "I passed," she said, the words tumbling out. "Sam, I passed." He laughed, a deep, warm sound. "Knew you would. Proud of you, Lily." She clutched the phone, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." The new year brought new possibilities. With her GED in hand, Lily's application to the nursing assistant program at Western Oklahoma State College was accepted, along with a full scholarship. Dr. Patel helped her navigate the paperwork, her office a cozy haven of books and encouragement. The program would start in the spring, a 9-month course that would certify her as a nursing assistant, a stepping stone to a full nursing degree. But the costs lingered. Textbooks, scrubs, certification fees. Sam came through as promised, with a quiet gesture that stunned her. He'd called in a favor with a friend who ran a used bookstore in Altus, securing a stack of nursing textbooks for free. Another friend, a thrift store owner, donated a set of scrubs, navy blue and crisp. When Lily tried to protest, Sam waved her off. "You focus on studying," he said. "I've got the rest." Maggie threw a small party at the diner to celebrate Lily's GED, complete with balloons and a chocolate cake that read, "Congrats, Lily," in shaky icing. The regulars showed up, filling the booths with laughter and stories. Tom from the shelter brought a card signed by everyone, and Ellen gave a speech that left Lily blushing and teary-eyed. Sam arrived late, his truck delayed by a snowstorm, but his presence lit up the room. He handed Lily a small gift, a keychain, shaped like a red pickup truck, its paint chipped just like his. "For luck," he said, his voice gruff but warm. Lily hugged him, her arms tight around his middle. "You're the best," she whispered. He chuckled, patting her back. "Just keep going, kid. That's all I ask." Spring 2024 marked Lily's first day as a nursing assistant student. She shadowed Karen, Sam's nurse friend, at the hospital in Altus, her scrubs feeling stiff and foreign. The hospital was a maze of beeping machines and hurried footsteps, but Karen's calm presence grounded her. "You'll learn the ropes," Karen said, showing her how to take vitals and change linens. "Just listen and ask questions." Lily was nervous, her hands clumsy at first, but the patient's smiles, small, tired, grateful, kept her going. She thought of Sam, of Maggie, of Ellen, of the night on the highway when she'd felt like nothing. She wasn't nothing anymore. She was here, helping, learning, becoming. Sam visited when he could, his truck a familiar sight in the diner's lot. He'd listen to her stories about the hospital, her eyes bright with excitement, and he'd nod, his pride quiet but clear. "You're doing it, Lily," he'd say. "You're really doing it." One evening, as they sat in the diner, the jukebox playing a soft Willie Nelson tune, Lily pulled a crumpled envelope from her pocket. It was a letter, written in her careful handwriting, the words she'd been carrying for months. "Sam," she said, her voice steady. "This is for you." He opened it, his eyes scanning the page. "Dear Sam, you saw me when I was invisible. You gave me a chance when I had none. I'm becoming someone because of you. Thank you." It was simple, but it said everything. Sam's eyes were wet, though he'd deny it. "You're something else, Lily," he said, his voice rough. "Something real special." She smiled, the keychain in her pocket a reminder of the road they'd traveled together. The diner's neon glow wrapped around them, warm and safe. And for the first time in a long time, Lily felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be.